podcast conversation brought to you by White House Custom Color. I'm Jed Toffer, and today I'm chatting with Jacquelynn Buck. Hello, Jacquelynn.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am fantastic because I am in Las Vegas.
You're doing all right, though? I mean, we're a few days in.
No, it's actually been great. This is, I feel like, my best year ever.
Why is that?
Oh my gosh. So it's so interesting. This is my 8th year teaching, and I have done boudoir master's class for 8 years. And this class this year was just totally with it. They were awake. They were interested. They asked questions that were not irrelevant, which is kind of cool.
I love that you start with they were awake.
Yes, well, it was 10 o'clock in the morning, first class. It was the first day of the conference, which, does help. But
right, a lot, actually.
Yeah, by the third day, I wouldn't expect half of them to be awake. But no, it was good. I felt like they were there for the right reasons, and they were all sort of at the same, maybe even level. They were all maybe intermediates, not quite new, but not so old that they're sitting there on their phones the whole time.
So you didn't have like that one person?
Not this year.
The one person was not there.
No, it was incredible. It made
you.
all the difference. And then I think the vibe was really good. There was a lot of energy. There was some laughter.
Yeah.
Good questions.
Yeah.
It was good. And then the photo walk, I felt the same. I felt there was hardly any shooting. They were really just interested in what was going on and taking notes and taking video.
Really?
And oh my gosh. And there's always that one person that wants to be photographing everything and he's in everybody's way.
Yeah.
And or she, it can be both.
Yeah.
This year, none of that.
Really?
It was respectful and engaged.
Well, that is something.
Yeah.
It's encouraging.
So I'm very happy.
I'm glad to hear. Good for you.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself a little bit. Boudoir is one of your specialties?
That is definitely a specialty. It's the thing I've been doing the longest. It's a weird sort of back way that I got into it. I have a master's in public health, and I spent loads of money on an education and then decided I wanted to be a photographer. And my father looked at me and said, well, that was a waste. And I'm like, no, come on, Dad, really? Yeah. This is what I love. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I tried to think about how to connect public health to photography. Thinking there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way I can connect these things so it's not a waste. Not realizing in my, youth that there's nothing is wasted. Education is never wasted, no matter what. But I thought about women's self-esteem, and I thought about how self-esteem really has an impact on so many things. The decisions we make, the way we make decisions, particularly with young girls, the way they make decisions about all kinds of risky behaviors.
Yeah.
And I thought if I can help a woman improve her self-esteem or see herself in a way that's more, authentic, maybe she can then impart that to her children and they can,
The ripple effect.
Yes. So that was my lofty goal.
That's your MO then.
Yeah. It's real women working with women who really maybe even need to see themselves a little differently. So that's how I started the brand. It was Real Women. That is the brand. And it's based on, I want women to see themselves as beautiful, and I want it to impact them. I want it to be for them. Maybe not so much for someone else, though that's a great byproduct. So that was the way that I started. But then as things evolve, I got into families, I got into children, I got into weddings, and it was a natural evolution. So the boudoir is the first love, and that is the thing I've been doing the longest, but everything else has evolved from there.
So you do all of those currently?
I do.
And you're out of Tucson,
I am,
correct?
yeah, Tucson, Arizona.
So you're working all year long.
Yeah, not in the summer.
So the summer, you really do take some time off in the summer.
There's a big break in the summer. The indoor work is still okay in the summer, and I do have a home studio, so the boudoir work can continue.
Right, you can keep going.
Yes,
right.
And newborns, things like that. Right. But family sessions definitely fall off, as do weddings for sure.
Yeah, there's probably not a wedding in July.
No. And if there is, it's an extraordinary discount. Someone is there because they're from out of town.
The first time I went to Phoenix, it was for a wedding in August.
Wow.
And I remember we were at the pool at the hotel outside at night. It was midnight, and it was 100.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I remember it got up to 118 that one of those days. And I remember thinking, this is amazing.
It's brutal.
You can't walk on the pavement barefoot at all.
Nope. You really can't. And I grew
real.
up in Pennsylvania, so I haven't lived there for a very long time, but it's a very different environment in total. And the seasons are so drastic that you really do have a very heavy fall and a very heavy spring when it comes to any outdoor work.
Right.
And then things fall off in the summer for sure, and then some in the winter as well. But I did a wedding in August once in Tucson. It was my first year there. And I said to myself, I really need to charge double if I'm going to do this again.
Never again,
It was terrible. Yeah. It was great,
or just
but
add a zero.
Yes, right.
I understand.
I was the one standing in the sun the whole day. So, it was rough.
They're brutal.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about your portrait session process. Okay. Kind of from, you said, like from booking all the way to in-person sales. Let's just go through that.
Okay.
First of all, let me ask you this. Why? Why that? Why that for you, from you, to talk about the whole shebang from beginning to end?
So I think one of the things that I learned the hard way was that you can't do this job half-assed. You can't just be a creative. You can't just be a business person. You have to do everything right and actually have a process that you follow that works every time.
If you want to be successful.
If you want to be successful.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. And I think that makes all the difference. And when you start, it's so natural to just pick up a camera and say, I'm going to photograph and I'm going to do this and this is great. And then you sort of get bogged down by all of the details, and maybe you even fall off because you just can't foresee how you're going to make this profitable.
Yeah.
So I think having, through the years, and I've been doing this now pretty much 11 years, but 8 full time, I feel like every year has been a better year than the last, which is pretty novel, actually.
And does that seriously play out statistically?
Yeah.
You have improved every year.
I have. Every year I have improved. Every year I have made a little bit more money.
Good for you.
Now, whether I've spent a little bit more remains to be seen.
That's a different class.
That's always a different, but in my head.
We can look at Dave Ramsey for that if we want to.
Exactly.
I'm not going to do that.
Right. But no, and when I look at the numbers and I think about why it's working and what's working for me, I think it has everything to do with you find the thing that works and you just keep doing it. And then the things that don't work, you learn to let go of. Okay. So this process that I use it's not rocket science, and it's not anything that's different, I think, than what many educators are talking about for photography. It's just the fact that I committed to it and I'm sticking to it, and it works for
you really do it.
Yeah, for sure. And every time I've come to this conference as a student, I would make a list of the things I was going to go home and implement, because you get so overwhelmed by all the things that you see and do and want to do, but then you never turn any of them into action.
Yes. And I tell people take no more than 3.
Yes.
Like write down up to 3. 3 is a lot.
Yeah.
If you go home with 1 and you implement it, it could be worth it.
Absolutely.
But just stop at 3, go home, do 3.
Yep.
Because you can.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what matters.
It's manageable. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So you start with... I'll let you just start.
Yeah,
where do you start?
And this applies to the way I do boudoir sessions too. So I consider a boudoir session a session. Weddings are a different animal, but pretty much any other portrait session I'm doing I cover it the same way.
Okay.
So I start with an inquiry. The inquiry comes through my website, generally through a contact form I have embedded, and I have my boudoir work separate from my main website. So it comes in, just as an inquiry. And I do ask for a phone number. Okay. And that phone number, I think, is one of the most important things that I ask for, because it allows me to reach out to them and say, hey, I saw your inquiry come through. I'd love to talk with you more about, what you're interested in. So it starts the conversation. And through that conversation, we get to a point where we talk about expectations, we talk about what they're looking for, we talk about pricing, because that does come up. It is a question that most people ask.
And this is on the phone.
This is on the phone. And then I offer to follow up with an email with everything we talked about after we get off, if they're not ready to make a decision.
Sure.
Which I would say for me, most people are not, unless they've been referred by somebody who's already used me, who already prepped them somehow for like the whole process. I do find that a follow-up email generally is the next step. They don't usually book immediately on the phone. Okay. And then I follow up with an email. And then we have usually a conversation, yes, okay, this looks good. Talk to my husband, whatever it was. I feel good about this. And then what I do is I ask for a non-refundable deposit as a session fee. And
So the session fee isn't paid in full.
Yes.
And you asked for that up front.
I do.
And it's non-refundable.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I implemented that in year 3 when I realized that people were not showing up.
Yep.
They were walking away or they were not calling back. And I didn't want to live that way. I want to know that you're going to be there. And I wanted people to feel like this was a reservation, for their time and mine.
Right.
So it made all the sense to me, and it has almost never failed me. I mean, in the few times that it's been either a miss in terms of the expectations were not set properly, it's almost always my fault.
Right.
And it just means I didn't have the right conversation with them.
Sure, I get that.
So, and in those cases, of course, I'm not going to, take their money and run.
Right.
But generally speaking, it's non-refundable, but it is changeable. I will allow them to reschedule if the kids are sick or something.
You're putting it out there, and it's interesting how people value something like that when they've actually paid for it.
Absolutely.
Everything changes.
And I will say there's a little bit of not intentional per se I'm not looking to scam anybody.
No.
But they forget that they've spent that money.
Money spent
by the
is
time
money
they
forgotten.
come back. And so it's almost not even relevant to what they're planning to purchase after the fact.
Absolutely not. You're right.
So it definitely is advantageous in that way too. So after they do the non-refundable deposit, we set up another time to either meet or talk. Now, I will tell you, I would prefer to meet with them in person, to do an in-person consultation before the session.
Right.
I don't get a lot of buy-in on that. The high school seniors tend to be the ones that want to do that more. The families, moms, they're very busy managing their kids and their lives. They would rather just talk to me on the phone.
So another phone conversation.
Yes.
So that phone conversation that you've already mentioned is not the consultation.
It is not.
Because at that point, for the most part, they haven't even booked yet.
That's right.
So that's like pre-booking.
Yes.
This next phone conversation or a meeting in person is the consultation.
That's right.
Okay.
And in that session, if you will, that conversation, we talk about location. We talk about clothing.
Yeah.
We talk about what their goals are for the session.
Right, what they want. Yep.
Do they want something that's just the family? Are they happy to do something that's more extensive? And even when they say, oh, we just want a family picture, I'm always going to photograph kids by themselves, siblings together, mom and dad together.
Yep.
So that's part of the process, which I get to with the shooting. But usually I do ask, what is this for? How long has it been since you've had a photo session? You know, are you looking for something to replace something that's on your wall, or have you just never done this?
Right.
And so I'm kind of trying to plant seeds already too with, what are you looking for? Would you love something for your wall that's beautiful? And would you love something that's, I don't know, maybe an album, that you can have that documents this.
So this is kind of the pre-selling piece.
It is. Without being salesy, I am asking, what are your goals? What are you looking for?
Right.
What are your expectations? And I'm also setting expectations, which we've already talked about a little bit when we talk about pricing up front, for what it is that they think that maybe what they've heard that they want to invest in, like, oh, my friend bought this album and I really would love an album too.
Yeah.
Or, no, you know what, I'm really a digital person. I'm really do it myself. Do you offer that? Let's talk about that, which we talk about that in the pricing, but we also talk about it again in the expectations.
So when they're coming in, if they come in person, is it an advantage for them to actually be there because you can show them things?
Absolutely.
During your non-salesy pre-sale.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, you're interested in an album? Great. Look at these albums I've got here. Just,
what do you like?
Do you see something here that interests you?
Sure.
And again, it really works for the seniors because they do, for some reason, they want to talk about clothing. And that's usually why they want to meet me in person, because they want to go through all their ideas, which is great. I really love that.
Yeah.
Moms, generally speaking, are, not looking to do clothing changes. They just want one look.
For the family photo. Sure.
Yeah. So I'm bouncing a little bit. But anyway, so the second conversation is more about location, clothing, time of day. Yep. We always have to have that conversation, particularly if I'm working with a mom that has young kids.
Right.
They want to work around kids' nap schedule.
Naps, yeah.
And I'm very much firm on, hey, you remember that photo session on my blog that you said that you loved? That happened right around sunset. And that's this time of day right now. Yeah. So, if you really love that light, we really probably need to look at scheduling a little bit later, And I've had moms who've had the same concerns you have. And what I've told them is to maybe try for a later nap schedule that day. Yeah. Or, and it's just, so you have to kind of anticipate some of those barriers and be able to yes and them. Yes, I totally hear what you're saying. And here's what I've done when others have said that same thing.
Right. Well, and that's one of the reasons why a consultation is so important is because you can all get on the same page. Because even if you're aware of what they like, they might not understand what is required in order to make that happen.
Absolutely.
So there's some education going on there.
Yep, there really is.
Oh, you like sunset portraits? Well, that takes place at sunset.
Exactly.
Well, and honest, it sounds funny.
No,
I know
it's
it does,
true.
But that happens.
Yes.
Okay, I like these sunset portraits. We have time from 10 to 11 in the morning.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Nope, I'm not that good at Photoshop, folks.
Well, and I don't really want to mess around to that degree with Photoshop.
It's so true.
Yeah, that I get it. And then I think people need to understand that that's one of the reasons why the pre-selling is always a big idea too. But that's also one of the reasons why I think consultations are so important. Get on the same page beforehand as much as possible.
Absolutely.
So what's the next piece?
So then we really are pretty much at the point of date setting. I mean, a lot of times we've already kind of picked a date when they make the non-refundable deposit.
Sure. Yep.
But really and truly, maybe something has changed in that conversation. Like, oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Then if we want sunset, we need to do it, different day.
Different time. Yeah.
But most of the time it's more just a confirmation. Okay. So we're good. We're going to meet here. We're going to meet at this time at this place. And I often find that they do follow up with clothing questions later, which I always say to them, go ahead and text me with some of your ideas.
Yeah.
I'm happy to weigh in. And my phone is my phone. It's my phone number. It's been my phone number for 20 years. So my personal phone and business phone are the same, which I hesitated to do, but then realized it was just easier for me.
I like it these days. There might have been a time where I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But I like it now.
Yeah. It's one phone, one phone to rule them all.
Yeah. I had two for a while. I had two cell phones for a while, and I did not like it.
Yep. And you just never know. And then people would text me on one and it wouldn't work. And then I'd text them on the other and it was so confusing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and now my standards are if I don't know you or if you know what, if I do and I don't want to talk to you, I don't answer the phone or I don't respond to the text.
Exactly.
Screen. I have one phone. There it is.
Yep.
And I'm not too worried about who has it because I just don't answer if I don't want to.
Yep. It's fair.
So there's
me
that.
too. Yeah. So I'm always happy to give that out for them to text me and look and they will. A lot of the moms will. They'll say, hey, here's what I was thinking, and they'll lay it on their bed for me, and they'll take a picture and I'll weigh in.
Right.
And it's usually fine. And that is one of the things I do when I talk to them about clothing. I have a very kind of standard spiel that I give, which is that, there's really very little that you could wear that would offend me from a what I would be willing to take a picture of you in.
Sure.
But here are some parameters.
Right.
And I give them those parameters, which are generally for me things like, think about what already looks great on you. Think about what you have in your closet, color-wise and clothing-wise, that when you wear, people say, wow, that looks great.
Yeah.
And I say, that's where you start.
Yeah.
Don't go out and buy a whole new outfit for a whole new family because you're going to look at that and say, why did we do that?
That's not us.
Yeah. Why are we wearing black shirts and jeans? We never wear black. Why are we matching?
Done that before.
Yes. So I very often guide them loosely, and then say, and most of the time, I think nowadays anyway, it's a much more coordinated effort and less matchy and less, but if people come with matching, I'm totally okay with that.
Right.
Not going to say no.
Okay.
But I do give them some guidance, and I have a little page on my website of things I've pulled together color-wise that other clients have done that I thought the color palettes worked really well.
Right.
And so I send them to that. But Pinterest is, you can't, Google family clothing portrait and you get 10,000 coordinated efforts.
Options.
Yeah. So I don't feel like I really need to overguide.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what we're talking about in that. And then I'll usually follow up. If the session is soon, I won't necessarily follow up again if it's 2 days from then, which has happened. It's been sort of a fast turnaround. But if it's a month out or 2 months out, I'll usually follow up. I'd say maybe the week before, just to make sure nobody's sick, nobody's, changed schedules.
No one's fallen down the steps and has a big bruise on their face.
And let me tell you, I think 75% of the people that I photograph family-wise are like, oh my gosh, so-and-so just had an accident. And they have them. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, right.
We can work with that. As long as they're not in the hospital.
Right.
We're okay.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, that's the I don't know if you want to call it it's just the preamble to the session.
Sure.
And then what I usually do is also preparing them ahead in every conversation. We are doing a in-person sales review. And I call it I don't call it an in-person presentation with them. I call it like a premiere, like your session premiere. And so they'll have a chance to schedule that. Usually I talk with them at the session to schedule that because their schedules, our schedule may have changed, so their schedule may have changed. And so usually it's about a week after the session, but it could be more. Just
you give
depends.
yourself a week to 10 days and after the session to have it ready.
Yep.
For them to come back and see.
Yes. And unless there's some sense of urgency, which there rarely is.
Sure.
I could always turn it around faster, but I prefer not to.
Right.
So then they come back to my home studio, which I do ask them to. So Tucson's kind of spread out and we don't really have a good interstate system.
Okay.
So I do have clients who are still in Tucson who do have to drive about an hour to get to me.
Okay.
And it's just the nature of the way the road systems are set up.
That's
and
how it is.
It's 14 miles and it still takes an hour.
Right.
So I do sometimes get a little pushback on that. And I will always say, you know what, here's why I do this. Here's why I think it's really important for you to be here. First, it's on your schedule. And you'll come and you'll see these pictures and you're going to be so glad you made the time to do this.
Right.
And second, it gives you an opportunity to really see the things that I offer in person. If you haven't already had the in-person consultation, you'll get to see the albums, you'll get to see the wall art, you'll get to see lots of things, and you'll get to see your pictures really big on my big screen TV, which I promise you is going to look way better than your monitor or your phone.
Of course.
Which is more likely these days.
Right.
So I actually don't get a much pushback on the in-person sales.
After that. I mean, at that point, when you've laid it out like that, people aren't pushing hard much.
No, they really aren't.
Okay.
And they know where I'm located before everything happens too.
Well,
so,
there's
an expectation.
You've also talked about this already. So this isn't like a surprise. This is how it works now.
Nope.
Right.
It is iterated in the conversation. It's reiterated in the email I send them. And then, of course, it's, when we schedule the session. I keep slamming that.
Do you ever fold on that?
There have been, here's one where I did, right? Yes, I do. Because life is life. And you can only push a person so far before you feel like, you know what, I've done my best to get them here.
Right.
And if it's not going to happen, I don't want to make them mad and walk away.
Sure.
So I had one mom, she had a maternity session. She came to see the photos. She did everything, I asked her to do. Then when she had the newborn, she was like, would it be okay if you just shared them with me online because, the kid and this and that, and she lived an hour. She was one of those that lived an hour.
Right.
And I already knew that she knew what to expect because we'd already done it with the maternity session. So in that case, I was actually okay. But I will tell you, she still hasn't followed up and it's been a month.
Yeah.
So, I've followed up with her a couple times. Hey, I saw you looked at the pictures. What do you think? You ready to think about what you want to order? So that's where you potentially lose. Do I think she's going to still buy something? Absolutely. These are her newborn pictures. But is she going to take that month or 2 months because life happens? She absolutely is.
Right. And then you've lost the control of the experience and everything else too.
Yes.
Right.
So I can tell you almost without fail, every time I give in, I regret that I gave in.
Right.
And I think I wish there was a better way I could have brought them here or gone to them, which I am starting to think about the idea of
going
doing
to them.
that
Yep.
for clients who really are resistant for whatever reason. I did it once for a wedding and it worked out really well. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just been okay for now where most people are willing to come to me.
Come to you, right.
But I think that if I think about it more, that would probably be a better plan than saying, sure, I'll put them online.
Right.
How about I come to you? How about we make a time for me to come and show you the pictures?
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
That's just something that I haven't needed to implement just yet, but I would say that I try my hardest to get them in the door.
Sure.
And then for out of town sessions, I do a lot of travel for the photography, so I do tend to cave more with the out of town sessions. I have tried Skype to show pictures at the same time while Skyping.
How does that go?
is such a hassle.
Less than ideal.
Yeah. So I really, if someone out there who can invent this is listening,
I
would really like some way to do a premiere session with a client over the phone while, they're in a different state.
Yeah.
It's just not something I've been able to work out yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
what's the next piece?
So the next piece is literally the in-person sales session. So they come to my home studio. They walk in the door. I have a sign that greets them, so they know that they're, because it is my home.
Right.
So I have to make sure that they know they're at the right place.
Right.
And then they come in the door, and I usually have water bottles out because it's Tucson and it's dry, but it's still a nice courtesy. And they sit down on the couch, and we have a nice conversation. And the albums are all spread out on a coffee table. I have 3 different tiers of albums that I offer, and so I keep them in those piles, like kind of good, better, best, sort of in order. I have wall art that's hanging on my walls. I have a big screen TV that's about 60 inches, and it's pretty close to the couch, so it's, you're not like way far away from it. So it's really just it's first a conversation. How are things? It was good to see you. How'd you feel about the portrait session? Okay, you excited to see the pictures? And they almost always are.
Sure.
So sometimes if it's a boudoir session, they're a little nervous, but that's in a good way. And so I do a slideshow presentation of my favorite, usually it's about 10 to 15 images that I have culled. So in the interim, of course, I'm editing. I cull the pictures, I edit in Lightroom, and then I pull 10 to 15 of my favorites for a slideshow. Okay. And I don't fine-tune edit those in terms of like real serious editing, but I do a little bit more care on those. Just give them a little bit of skin softening, a little bit of making sure that it's a little bit nicer.
Now eventually they're seeing for the sales appointment more than 10 to 15.
They are.
But your slideshow is not everything that they're seeing.
That's
your
correct.
Slideshow is composed of just your 10 to 15 favorites.
That's right. Set to music.
Helpful to know.
In a really fun, way, like a really.
What software do you use?
I currently use Animoto. To do the
slideshow. You use Animoto.
And then I use ProSelect to show them
for the sale.
all of the pictures after. So the Animoto part is fun. It usually gets them really excited. They see those are great. And I will say, and I think I heard you maybe say this in a podcast, I do edit the pictures, those 10 to 15, but I will tell you they almost always choose those.
Of course.
Because they can see the difference, and so
and it means a lot to them that they are your favorites.
Yes, absolutely. I can't tell you how many people ask, well, did all the ones in your slideshow, did I pick all those?
Right.
Because they really do want to know, did you like the same ones I did?
Yep.
So after they see the slideshow, then I go through ProSelect and I have probably 50 images to show them.
Sure.
And then I go through and I let them choose and I say, just go with your gut. We can always narrow down later. Just tell me what you love.
Right.
And because, so many people get bogged down. Well, I don't know how I'm going to choose. I like them all. And I'm like, just choose them all. If you like them all, we'll work with that.
Every one of them.
So I slide them on over into the happy face category. Yeah. There's a happy face in ProSelect. And then we look at the happy face images together. And then they decide from there. It's at that point that I usually hit pause in my own head. And I say, okay, here are your favorites. We've got 25. Mm-hmm. What do you think you'd like to do with them after, we've already had this conversation? I do have a price sheet out also because they often don't bring the paperwork.
Is that online?
It is not online. Okay. The only time I communicated to them is via email after we've had the conversation.
Okay.
So they do have a copy of it.
Right.
They also, I also print a copy that I give to them at the session itself. When we're leaving, they do sign, they have an opportunity at the close of the session to sign a permissions to let me use images.
Sure.
And I usually do that if they want a sneak peek.
Okay.
And so that is an opportunity where they also get a folder that has the pricing in it. Mm-hmm. So they get it potentially twice before they show up at my door.
Right. But then you have one.
I do, because I would say only 95% of the people don't bring them.
Right.
So,
of course.
Yeah. So I have that out. And then I say, what are you thinking? Are you thinking about, like, do you want something for your wall? Are you looking at albums? And so that's just where the conversation goes. And I can tell you, when I first started doing the in-person sales, I was really, really nervous about selling. I didn't want to be salesy. I didn't know how I was going to do it in a way that didn't sound like I was being salesy.
Right.
And I had no problem selling my work, selling my creativity. Mm-hmm. And so I had to switch in my head to the idea of I was still doing that.
Okay.
I was still selling my beautiful images.
Right.
And so I was still able to believe in them in a way where initially I couldn't make that leap from I believe in my images, but I don't believe in the sales process.
I get it.
Now
sure.
I connect it in a way where it's not hard. It's, oh my gosh, I love that image too. And I feel like that would be great on metal.
Right.
Or that would be really great as an album. Or you've got 25 images. That's a lot. How would you feel about maybe getting an album? Because then you can have them all in one place.
Yeah, integrating the products into the whole mindset is seemingly effective because that's really what it's all about for in-person sales, is so that they can decide what they want.
Yes.
And that they can see their options.
Yes.
Right. What about, that brings me to this. What about digital files?
Yeah, it's a beast. I know.
I feel like that's the music that needs to play.
I know, it's awful. I can't tell you how it pains me, because there is a part of my heart that I really just want to sell them a product. I don't want to sell them a digital product. I know from experience that if I only sell a client a digital file, they are not going to do a dang thing with that image. It's going to sit on a disk or a thumb drive, and it's going to go, it might go on their phone, and they might show their pictures to their friends, but they're not going to do anything tangible with it. So I do offer them at a premium price. So if they really do want digital files, it makes it that much, there's a barrier, if you will, to entry in that regard.
Yeah.
If they really want them, they can have them. But I will say most often people are buying them and something else. Now, I know some photographers who do like if you spend this much, you get the digital images. And I think that that's a fine way to do it too. Encouraging the product sale by giving them what they want attached to it.
Right.
And I think that that would work really well too. Right now, I just have it priced at a place where if they're willing to buy it, I'm happy to sell it.
It's just expensive.
It is. Which actually often still people are willing. There's something about, and for the client who hesitates, I say, well, you know what? I'm happy to give you the images small with my watermark on them so that you can share if that's really what you're looking for. Because I do ask, when they ask for digital files, I say, well, what do you think you'd like to do with those?
Right.
Well, I just want to share them. I just want to make sure everybody can see them. I've got a great solution. And you don't have to, worry about buying everything you see up here from a digital standpoint.
Does that deter them then from buying a product though?
It does not, because they also want something for their house, for their home, but they want to share it too, right? Okay. I think some people think, well, if I'm going to hang it in my home, the only people who are going to see that are the people who walk through my door.
Come to my house,
What about grandma who lives in Nebraska? How is she going to see these images?
Right.
So I think that for them, it doesn't deter them. I would say like 60% of my clients still buy the digital files.
Okay.
And I don't sell them all. I sell them in increments.
Okay.
So it's 5, then there's a jump to 10. There is an in between if they want, but most people choose between the 5 or the 10. And if they want more than that, it's a per image add-on. So I'm not saying, okay, sure, for $500 you can have all of them.
Right.
That just shoots me in the foot.
Sure.
So I don't do it that way.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
But I do offer it. I do feel like it's a very difficult conversation to say no to.
Yeah.
And there are better ways to say the yes and, yes. And if you buy this beautiful 20 by 30, you can have the digital file as well, or something like that. Of
course.
And I it's not quite what I do yet.
What would you say to sum everything up? Just advice in general for someone that, let's talk to the person in particular that is primarily selling digital files or a session with digital files in a package or whatnot. What would you say to somebody like that if they're hearing this and they're wanting to go this route but haven't made that jump yet?
I would say, so there's 2 things. I learned very early on that you can't sell what you don't show. And I think that has served me year after year. If you want to sell somebody a 20 by 30, then you need to have also an 11 by 14 and an 8 by 10, and you need to be able to show them if they come in and say, I want an 8 by 10.
Right.
Well, how do you feel about that 8 by 10 when it sits next to this 20 by 30?
Sure.
And here's my wall that's the same size as your wall.
Right.
And there's lots of, ProSelect and Fundy and all of these different softwares allow you now to do things where you can
project
have
that
people's
size, right.
walls and do the simulations. And I feel like those are great tools to have, but I still think having physical samples for people to see makes a big difference, especially if you're looking to sell something like canvas and metal and something, you want them to
trying to sell
see.
A physical product too.
They need to be able to see it and touch it and feel
it.
So I would say have samples. And I know samples can be expensive, but lots of the labs run lots of sample discounts and prices. And White House, I know, does a great job with their sample sales. So I'm always a fan of those. That's how I built my literal studio portfolio.
Right.
Was through sample
sales. And you can
get
sample albums all the time.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
So I definitely encourage that, and I think it makes a big difference. I would also just encourage someone to just try one in-person sales
session. Try to do one.
Just one. All you need to do is try one.
That's a good call to action right there. Try to do one. Pick somebody, right?
Yep.
That you feel comfortable with. Don't pick somebody that you're scared to death of or that's intimidating.
Yep.
Pick somebody that you feel comfortable with or that you have a rapport with and try one in-person sale. I love that idea.
Yeah. And I can't tell you, I don't know anybody that has tried one where it hasn't worked out.
Right. And
they haven't said, why have I not been doing this my entire career?
Yeah. It is one of those things. When it goes well, it is sweet.
Yeah.
And you're happy, of course, because it's profitable when it goes well. But it also feels really, really good to know that you're giving somebody A, what they want, and B, what you really know they should have.
Yes, absolutely. And I believe that.
Right.
I really do. I mean, I tell a story on my wedding website about my mom passed away when I was 25. Mm-hmm. I don't have a lot of pictures of her. Mm-hmm. I have her in my dad's wedding album. And if I didn't have that wedding album, I don't know what I would have.
Yeah.
We didn't have cell phones. I don't have cell phone pictures of her.
Right.
And so I think to myself, I try to pass that idea of that legacy on to my clients.
Right.
It's so funny, especially with high school seniors. We sit there and the moms are like, oh, I want an album. And the kid is like, why do you want an album? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, come back in 20 years and tell me you're not happy mom bought that album. Seriously, because they're so digitized. Yeah. And I think, I'm like, well, when your phone crashes, where are you going to be?
Well, there's just something about having the product. There just is. It's different. It is not the same. That's great advice. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, well, thank you. I hope that helps somebody out there. Yeah.
Well, I like, you laid it out, and it's one thing for, some of us that have been doing in-person sales, whatever, for a long time, but for someone that hasn't or is new, or even for someone that has for a while, just to have it all laid out, I think is really, really helpful. So thanks for doing that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Enjoy the rest of your time here in Las Vegas and get home nice and safe and sound.
Thanks.